so we make a start then. So today we're going to make a double box fold card. I know I said box fold on the event banner, but I got it slightly wrong. And I forgot to say, if you want to make it, bring a pen and a piece of paper. But you can always catch up with the measurements, just rewind me and play me again if you can stand that. So the papers that I'm using come from this set, the A Very Festive Season. So I'm also using the Pine Cones embossing folder, but not as an embossing folder, sort of. All will become clear. I'm also using the Festive Foliage die set. I'm using this beautiful set of leaves here. And I'm also using the Festive Tatty words. You can use any of your sentiments from Lisa. They'll all work equally as well on this project. So, you know, this is just what I've chosen to use today. Right, so the first piece of card you're going to need is 11 1/4 by 5. I'm working in inches. I haven't converted to centimetres. I'm an old-fashioned girl and I grew up with inches, and centimetres just, you know, I know it has its place, but I work in inches. I much prefer it. So 11 1/4 by 5, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to score it on the long side, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch, 2 inches, 4 inches and 5.5 inches. Okay, now all I would say is if you change the measurements in this, which I did, I made a smaller one and I wasn't really happy with it. I wanted it to be a little bit bigger, so I changed all my measurements. And all I would say is remember that this piece here and this piece need to be the same width, because when you fold it up it needs to match. Okay, so when you do that, those two pieces need to be the same. Okay, so it's gonna sit like that. So this piece here and this piece need to be the same width. Okay, so however you change it, bear that in mind. Now before we fold this up, we are just going to decorate this back piece here. And this piece of card, which is going here as a mat and layer, is 6 3/8 by 4 7/8. And then my designer paper, which as I say is from the A Very Festive Season, is 6 2/8 by 4 6/8. So you're just coming down very, very marginally. You can see it's a really small mat and layer. Now I'm using a tape runner only for speed, because there is quite a bit to this. I wouldn't normally use a tape runner, but they have their uses. Right, going with that. If it's not right, it's not right. It's a little bit short down here, but don't worry about that, because when you put it on here you're going to hide that bit anyway. Okay, so don't worry too much, don't be too precious about it, like I'm not. And then we're going to put this piece onto the back. And again, it's not very forgiving, so try and line it up as best you can. And I would line it up at the bottom, probably. It's a bit fiddly, but it's worth it in the end. Okay, so that's my back done. And then when I fold this over here, that's going to sit over the top of that, okay? Right, so before we fold this and stick it, I am going to just decorate this piece here. This is going to be the front of the box part, okay? So for this, you'll need a piece of card, which is too big. Why is it too big? I'm going to trim that down. That's too big. I've said it should be 5 by 2, but actually it's a little bit too big. So maybe a little bit smaller than that. That's better. Not sure what went wrong there. All you need to do is just make sure that it sits on your card and looks like it's supposed to, like matting and layering, you know. It's worth spending. I mean, you've got way more time than I've got when I'm doing it live, I mean, I prepped all this on Saturday, so you'd think I'd had plenty of time to get it right. And then this piece, which of course again is too big. Oh, you can tell I've had a week off, can't you? I've gone to pieces. Not quite sure why, but soon rectified. It's a piece of paper at the end of the day. And there's only me that knows I got it completely wrong. And you, of course. But you won't tell anybody, will you? See, now that's perfect. So I said that was 4 7/8 by 1 7/8. Just double check the measurements before you cut it. It was only marginally out. Not quite sure why. Perhaps I didn't look at my cutter properly. Perhaps I need my eyes tested. Never mind. Okay, so let's pop that on the front. So that's your front panel done. Okay. Now I did choose 2 different papers here. You could choose a completely contrasting paper if you wanted to. I mean, I found this on Pinterest, and I think it was a Stampin' Up demonstrator. So she'd used 2 completely different pieces of paper, but I quite like the tones in this, and it sort of sat right with what I wanted to do. Okay, so now we're going to fold this up to make our first box. Okay, now the easiest way to do it is to fold it flat. So you've got your first little 1/2 centimetre fold here. So yeah, fold your 1/2 centimetre fold in and fold it on this fold here. Okay, so it's the second fold down from your 5.5 inch score line. So you fold in this fold here. So fold it up, and then what you're going to do, flick it over. Now I've put tape on the back of here already. I've put double-sided red liner tape on. Now I know you can't see this because I'm hiding it with the card, but it's the easiest way to do it. So if I pull those free like that, then I can fold that down and just make sure you line it up along the edge, and then your box will sit like that. Okay, so that's your first part done. Now the second part, you're going to use a piece of card which is 6.5 by 4 inches. Okay, and again you're going to score it at 1/2 inch and 2 inches. All right, and then you need a piece of card as your matting and layering, which is 4 3/8 by 3 7/8, because that's going to go here like that. All right, so we'll put that down first. Okay, so place that down there. Done it again. Just want the sides to be even. That's better. Okay, now when you fold, this is going to work in exactly the same way, and the easiest way to do this is to place your card onto your front where you want it to sit. Okay, so I'm sitting mine sort of about 1/2 inch into that little box there. All right, you can sit it wherever you want it, but wherever you want to rather, but wherever you sit it, bear in mind how much card you're going to be losing up the top here. So I think about 1/2 inch in is about right. I think that's about perfect for that. Okay, so I'm going to use tape again. And keep this piece folded over and work on this piece for the time being. All right, so place that down like so. Make sure it's straight and then rub it down. Now, I would normally use glue, and I used glue on the one that I'd made the other day. It's a little bit more complicated to use glue on a live, because although it's brilliant glue and it does grab really quickly, it's got a little bit of movement to it, and I didn't want to risk it with this demo. Okay, so I would use glue, and I would recommend using glue, because the trouble with tape, no matter how good it is, it will dry out. Okay, over time it dries out, and you run the risk of your card sort of coming apart because of that tape drying out. And it doesn't matter what tape you use, it doesn't matter how good people say it is, tape dries, simple as. So you're better off using a wet glue. Okay. Oh, I stabbed myself. Hey ho. Right, keep your fold down and keep your card flat, and then just rub that down. Okay, don't really like blood on my card, I bet I can't get it off either. Never mind, I might have to put a piece of matting and layering on the top of that. Okay, so when you stand it up, it looks right. Okay, it does take a while to sort of settle. It will stand up, I promise you, it will stand up. But when you've got your decoration on the front, you'll have a little bit more weight in the front to make it stand properly. As it is at the moment, it's a bit flimsy, but once you've got your decoration on the front, that will firm it up a lot. Okay, so decoration on the front. Now these are the, oops, chucking my sentiment on the floor. These are the leaves from the festive foliage, this one, and I've gone with 2 different coloured browns because it just fits my card. All right, and I'm putting 2 together, but sort of not quite together, so they're not directly on top of one another, they're slightly off centre. All right, so I'm putting light on dark on one, and that's going to go there. I am going to hide that, and then I'm going to put dark on light on the other, and then that one's going to go here. Okay, so if I just glue those down, now you're not going to have much in the way of area where you can add your glue here, because you're putting it off centre. Oops. Because you're putting it slightly off centre, you're just going to have to try and gauge where your glue will stick. You don't need loads, because you want it to look, but this is how I want it to look. I want it to sort of look spiky, and if you try and put it on top of one another, it won't. Okay, so I am going to do light on dark on the other one, just because it's a little bit different, really. I mean, the choice is yours. You don't have to use 2 different colours, but I just think it gives it a little bit of a different look. So I just add that on there, and it doesn't matter where you add it, how you add it, it all adds to the spiky look of the leaves, and that's why I like this set of leaves. This is nearly as one of my favourites as the original large foliage. It's getting there anyway. So those are going up there, and then I'm going to use the embossing folder. Now I've already done my embossing, and I've cut out 2 of the pine cones. Now you might think, oh, I can't be bothered with that, it's really fiddly. It's not. The embossing on these folders is so deep and so good that your scissors will find the edge no problem, and it is ridiculously easy to cut these bits out. Now obviously the pine cones look amazing, don't they? But I think they could look a little bit more amazing, so I'm going to use some of Lisa's wax. Now I know that the lovely Emma has struggled with the waxes, because she says she gets half of it up her fingernail. Not quite sure how much wax she's taken out of the tub, but you really don't need an awful lot just to add a little bit of definition to these pine cones, and it just lifts them from they're pine cones to, oh wow, they're pine cones. Right, I think that'll do. And I've only used one colour. I only used the gold. Don't think you need any more colours than that, to be honest, just to lift them a little bit. So let's put our leaves down, and I'm just going to add my glue right down the middle of these. I'm not going on the spikes at all because I don't want to overflow on onto the back of the card here. Just take that bit of glue off there. So just straight down the middle. Dead easy. You see what I mean about the glue? It's good glue. It grabs really quickly. But when you're adding something like this to this, you really don't want anything to move. So I would still choose glue over tape anytime. So I'm putting my pine cones down here. Now I'm actually going to add those with 3D glue gel, just because I want them to sit up a little bit, and I don't want them to be totally flat. So I'll just add my glue gel on here. Okay, so let's put these down here. Just making sure that you don't get any glue gel on that top bit there, because you don't want that to stick. So one on top of the other, just to give a little bit of depth. Okay, and then all you need to do now is add your sentiment. Now, as I said, I've used the festive tatty phrases, festive tatty words, and this one comes in one strip, Season's Greetings, but I've done what you saw Lisa do last night with the Especially For You. I've cut them twice, so I've cut them in, I think the back one's dark brown to match these, and then the top one is the gold satin card from Lisa. So all I've done is I've just snipped it between the S and the G. Okay, so if you look at the picture, you see there's a link here between the S and the G. So all I've done is cut that right up against the curve of the G, and then I've left a little tail on the S and just cut that little middle piece out. Okay, and it just means you can split the word, because it wouldn't look right all in one line. Okay, I didn't think it looked right anyway. I mean, I suppose you could have put it across the bottom and it might have looked okay, but to fit in with everything else, I wanted it to be sort of smaller, so that's why I cut it in half. But I was just really to sort of say, you don't have to use them as is. You know, you can always adapt them to fit your card, and they snip beautifully. I think there's several of Lisa's sentiment sets that do the same. You know, they're all sort of snippable, and you don't always have to use things as they're portrayed to you. Just experiment, enjoy sort of, you know, seeing what they look like if you change them. Okay, so hopefully now, if I stand that up, she said, hopefully. So I think probably what I've done is the card that I've used, it's American Craft cardstock, and it probably isn't quite strong enough. So to try and combat that, I think I would add another couple of pieces of card behind here, just the same colour, so that you can't, you know, it doesn't look really obvious, just to add a little bit more weight, to give it a little bit more stability. So there you go. Sorry about the fact that it won't stand up, but it should do. So use a thicker card and it will be perfect. So I'll love you and leave you. I will see you Thursday at 1 o'clock. Have a fabulous week and I'll see you Thursday. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. See you soon, everybody. Bye now.